Thanks so much to all my patrons. Join now to help support the channel and help pick the books I review on this channel. Link in the description. And I am done. Okay, so I just finished reading House of Assassins. This is book 2 in the Saga of the Forgotten Warrior by 𝗟𝗟, and I want to give you my unedited thoughts when finishing this book, which was literally just right now. So, yeah, love this book. Thought I would, but yeah, this is going to be another 5 stars for me. This book's just awesome. I love the way 𝗟𝗟 writes. I mean, I've only read a couple of books now, just these 2, and you know, I feel like he can't miss, because the way he writes his stories and the way that he plots his stories are just badass, and they make me so excited to keep going. And I like that kind of thing. You know, I don't know, as I wouldn't with anything, but I don't know if this would be my thing if it's like all I read. But to mix it up every now and then, just get this totally awesome, badass story is really, really, really fun. And the fact that it's that the direction of it goes at such a nice pace, that the plot is so inventive, that there's actually a lot of depth to these characters. It just knocks it out of the park. Now, I started reading this series because it randomly won the TBR raffle that I do at the end of every month. And this was one of the few times that a book's won the raffle where I was not super looking forward to it. The cover that I saw looked a little janky, in my opinion. I'd never heard of it before, and I didn't have a lot of confidence going in. And that first book just blew me out of the water. It was incredible, and it was everything that I ever wanted out of a fantasy book. And so I was like all in. So going into this one, I have that feeling sometimes when I read an author, because I've had it happen a lot lately. You know, most notably, I think with Anthony Ryan and Bloodsong, where I read a first book that was so incredible that I get so nervous going into the second book, because I'm like, you know, are they going to be able to keep it up, or is this just going to be a massive disappointment? In the case of Bloodsong's follow-up, Tower Lord, it was a massive disappointment. And I've had this happen a few times lately. So I really, really, really wanted this one to just be incredible, and it really was. Now, I'm not sure if I liked it quite as much as the first book, but that's no indictment on this one. This was great. And I'd say that I didn't like it as much because there is a criticism that I have of this that I did not have in the first one. And the criticism was, and it's also not the biggest criticism in the world, but it was that this book essentially, at least from my perspective, only reading 2 of the books that I think are going to be a 4 or 5 book series. But it felt like this was a big side quest. And I got that feeling because the way the first book ended, and then hearing what this next book was called, it felt like, oh, they're going to focus on this thing that, at least where I'm sitting, didn't feel like the primary problem going on in this world, and just a little, you know, obstacle in the way of this main character finally getting to the point that he needs to get by the end of the series. And as I'm reading along and I see who the flashback character is, this book is doing that thing that Brandon Sanderson has done in Stormlight Archive. I doubt Sanderson invented it, but it's the one that I know of, where the author will take a different character and every now and then go back and do a flashback scene, or or do a scene that just goes to their perspective for a little while, even though it's not the main thing. And we got that in this character. I'm like, okay, this is going to be about this character. There's going to be this mission involving them. I don't want to ruin anything about the plot here. I will talk a little bit about overall plot, but I don't want to ruin anything. And so I was a little hesitant going in at the beginning, and I wasn't loving it, to be honest with you, as it started up, but it kept getting better and better throughout the book. And by the end of it, and when I finished this, I ended up with 2 overall feelings. One is, I was right. This was, or at least I think I'm right, because I don't know, maybe the book will take a different direction than I think it's going to go. That's certainly possible. But I was right. This felt like it was just a little side quest. But the second thing I realized was that side quest was awesome, and it needed to be written about. And 𝗟𝗟 just took it in such a fun direction, and that I will never forget. And that's one of the hallmarks, I think, of a wonderful story for me, one that I just know is going to be stuck in my brain for the rest of my life. And that's where this one was, because the imagery of the major conflict in this book, and I would say especially kind of like the final third of this book, as the characters kind of got set up into place for the final, scenes to go down. And by final scenes, I mean for quite a good length of the book, were just incredible. And the scenery of where this all took place, the events that were taking place, the different sorts of antagonists that were involved here, several different kinds of antagonists, the twists and turns along the way, involving the magic and the just the lore of the world that was filling in a way that I wasn't really ready for. I guess in retrospect, I should have been a little bit more. I mean, there's bigger things going on than just those people on Earth. We're dealing with otherworldly type things here. We're dealing with gods, and I'm a sucker for that kind of thing, I must admit. But I didn't see it coming that way. I thought we were going somewhere else. And, I feel like the author kind of told us that that's what it was going to be about, like right at the beginning of the first book. But I think I just kind of missed it and was focused on something else. But just wonderful, wonderful stuff. So even though I'm sure the author is not watching this, Larry Correia, awesome job, man. This is great. And I also feel like I need to touch a little bit on, before I kind of break down the different aspects of why I really did like this book, about Larry Correia, the man, because I feel like this guy's got a bad rap for such a ridiculous reason. And I'm gonna hop on my soapbox for a moment, and try not to get political. I try never to be political, but I'm not gonna take a political side here, but just like the politics of writers in fantasy and their relationships with other writers. Because Larry Correia was the center of a controversy involving the Hugo Awards, where, and I'm going to butcher this, but there was this perception that I believe is very accurate, that there was only certain types of writers were getting recognition at the Hugos, and it felt felt political and not right, because my belief. And I suspect that a vast majority of neutral people that are not involved in its belief would be that the major fantasy awards should be going to the best fantasy writers. And that there should be no effort made to say a writer needs to look like this, they need to sound like this, they need to believe this in order to be up for recognition. Because I think all of that, and I'm pretty extreme on this, where, I believe in art in general that you should perceive the art for what it is, not who the creator, who the artist is at all. And I've taken a little bit of criticism on this channel, not a ton. I mean, I'm not being lashed out against, but for unabashedly loving certain authors that have pretty extreme political views on both sides of the aisle here. And I just don't care. I don't care what an author believes unless it's truly, unabashedly heinous. I'm probably not going to go spend some money on an author that was, a convicted child rapist or something. That would be, I wouldn't personally want to go that way. But just because an author believes something politically, I truly just don't care. And I just want to read what you got. And I think this author got lashed out against because of their views and their reaction to the Hugos in a way that they felt like there was this group voting going on to get certain people awards. And so this guy and several others got together and said, okay, if you're going to do that, we're going to do it too. And because they did that, then they got everybody lashing out at them, and that's just nuts and it's crazy, and I think proves their point, quite frankly. So enough of that, but I will just say, give this author a chance. And it's wild to me, just truly wild, that, and I guess it shouldn't be, but it still nonetheless is, that's going on in the fantasy book, space, where we're all just fans of these books, right? And I feel like we try to put our views aside when we're doing this, because we're all nerds and geeks and dorks, and we should band together and enjoy that kind of thing and not care about that sort of stuff. But whatever, off my soapbox. Let's now go into this book a little bit. So, without spoiling things, I will say that this series in general is about, and I don't even know if I actually know everything about it yet, because I think things are being revealed. But in general, it is about this main character, Ashok or Ashik, and he is part of this class of person that is like a protector. And their job is to fight back the demons who live in the oceans. So in this world, and there's lore that goes into it that is awesome, but demons have infested the oceans, and every now and then they come onto land. And so humans don't want to live by the oceans anymore. And the only people that live by the oceans are like the lowest caste person. And whenever these demons come on shore, these protectors come out and they have to repel this invasion. The protectors do more than that, but that's like their big thing in this world. And there's this major theme in this book that's a little bit beaten over the head, but it's still enjoyable, and in a kind of a common theme that judging people based on their caste and the fact that they're poor and the fact that they are considered lesser than because of their birth is a bad thing, right? And that all humans should be should be judged without this sort of prejudice. And, that's a lot of what this book has this underlying subtext of, because you have this, you have the normal person, and then you have like this underclass person, and it feels like a large majority of people are these like underclass people, and they're considered like less than human. They're like not human. Like anybody can straight up just murder them, it wouldn't matter. You just like have to pay the person that owned them, but that's about it. They're just like almost feels like they're like less than slaves, which is an absurd statement. But then you've got this character who ends up possessing this sword, this black sword, which is like this magical, awesome, somewhat sentient sword that he just becomes then like the strongest of the protectors. And it's his story. And now I can't really say much more than that, because there's a lot of nuance to this that's eye-opening and fun to read about that I won't ruin. But that's the first book. He has this major, huge event that happens in his life that changes the course of where he believes that he should be in the world. And he ends up on a quest. And I won't say much more than that, because this book picks up and he is still on this quest. But like I said, he gets sidetracked because I don't know that I can say much more about why he got sidetracked. But he gets sidetracked. He has to go solve this major problem in order to achieve his quest. And that's what this book is about. It's achieving that major, central conflict. And yeah, like I mentioned earlier, it's extremely well done. The fact that this is a side quest book should be a very, very big negative. And I feel like most authors would fumble that badly, and it would come off like unnecessary. We felt like that. And by we, I mean like the greater, the greater world that ended up reading all of the Wheel of Time books. Wheel of Time is something that I have always enjoyed, but there's a few books there in the middle that are considered like the slog that I think is like the definition of fantasy bloat and these little things that don't really matter in the grand scheme of things, and things going too slow. And that's what this could have been, but 𝐒𝐲 rescued it, and he ended up getting a 5-star from me because it's just awesome. And and God, I wish I could say more. Sometimes I wish I was a spoiler channel, because there's some things that happen in here that I kind of want to talk to people about. But I'll save that for like my Discord. If you want to chat about this book, I'd be super down to do it. Come over to my Discord. There's links down below in the description. Let's have at it, because I'd love to talk to you about the things that happened here that I was just obsessed with. But moving on from that, I want to talk a little bit about the world and the lore and the magic here, because it is extremely well done. I mean, it rides that line, I think, very nicely between, overdone lore. And by overdone, I mean things like, in my opinion, and this is a minority opinion, but things like the Lord of the Rings, they just go so in depth about things that don't necessarily matter other than just to build up this world, too in depth. And, still, Lord of the Rings, good books. But, today's standard, they're not nearly as good as many other things. Something like this like blows Lord of the Rings out of the water, in my opinion. I know that's nuts, but it's me. It's Matt. That's what I like. But it still gives the right amount of lore to the world that it just feels perfect and inventive. And that's what I'm looking for a lot in these books, because I've now read 500 plus fantasy books, and things can get very repetitive, and you can see where things are going. And when you get a book like this that maintains being fresh, that feels new, that has these different aspects to the world where you've never really thought about it before. And you're like, that's really cool. Why hasn't nobody done that before? And I love it. And that's what this book is just littered with. And, so it's got that going for it. Now, then you get the characters. And the character depth here and the variety of the characters is absolutely wonderful. The change that this main character goes in. And I love characters that undergo major change. I can't stand characters that start the series as a certain type and they end the series in that same type. You've got this character that is undergoing enormous change, but still maintains a lot of the values that he tried to grow up, tried to live with, but has these major, earth-shattering events going on that he's trying to grapple with. And that's awesome. And but the underlying aspect that this dude is just like this badass warrior, that you still get these wonderful, amazing, wonderfully descriptive fight sequences and these moments where you're just like wanting to jump out of your seat and just cheer for him. And that's great. You've got this wonderful side cast of characters, one of which is emerging in this book. Is it 𝐬𝐞𝐧𝐤𝐬 or something like that? That is absolutely hilarious. This dude, super full of bravado, but he kind of knows he's full of shit in many ways, but extremely entertaining throughout. There's this this comedic factor to this. It wasn't like overtly comedic, but things that just like to lighten things up a little bit. And getting that character to have multiple scenes where he was featured was a great choice. But you've also got this other, this, God, I can't even describe who she is, but you've got this, this main, actually several main female characters that I think are wonderfully written, that are going through these major events themselves, that have a lot of depth to them, and I love reading about them. So yeah, awesome stuff there. I feel like the prose here is in the quite good category. It's this adventure, epic story that is not trying to be pretentious. It's not trying to be this philosophical, take on humanity. It's trying to be a really fun adventure story with some also major, thought-provoking things going into it. But it again, and I've said this before, but it rides the line between these things rather nicely, and it just makes it a really accessible and enjoyable read, but also one that doesn't feel dumbed down at all. So yeah, overall, this is awesome. More people need to read this series. It is wonderful. I'm going to keep talking about it. I need more people to read it. Check out 𝐿𝐴𝐼𝐸𝐻𝐸. The dude's writing is awesome. And, I can't vouch for all the things that he's written. He's also, I think, more known for writing the Monster Hunter series, which I know nothing about. I know the Monster Hunter games. I don't think the books have anything to do with that. I think they're their own thing. But it's on my TBR. I'm certainly going to read it. I want to keep reading this author until I, find out if he keeps hitting home runs. And if that's the case, then yeah, keep on reading me some more 𝐿𝐴𝐼𝐸𝐻𝐸. So that's it for me. Go check out this series. It is wonderful. And as always, happy reading to you. Thanks again to all my patrons, with a special shout out to my Ascendant tier and Librarian tier patrons: Amy, Anna G, CJ, Doust, Darren, JD, Jonathan, Nathan T, Nev's Book Channel, 𝗟𝗏𝑔𝐴, Ron Reich, Russell, Ryan L, Slay, Sydney Baker, Tahir, Zion, Anna, Andra, Blair, Brock, Evan, Harry W, Joe UK, Kat Mick, Michael Sugarman, Sky, and Tyler. Thanks for sticking to the end of this video, and if you want to watch some more content from my channel, click over here and I've got some good videos for you. Thanks so much.